All right, welcome to another episode of the Middle Aged Metalhead. So it's been 3 months since my last update, and it's been a crazy 3 months. Work's been ridiculous. I've been traveling on work, and here I am again. So a while back, I think on with the vinyl community on YouTube, there's this thread that's going around of 10 albums you listen to the most. Not particularly your favorite albums, but the albums that you go to and put on when you can't decide what you want to listen to, right? And I figured this would be a good place for me to jump back in. So here we are, 10 albums that I listen to the most. Not all of these are my absolute favorites from the band, but yeah, I do spin these a lot, particularly, like I said, when I don't know or I can't decide what I want to listen to. So, in some ways, this is sort of like my comfort food when it comes to music. So, first up from 1970, Paranoid by Black Sabbath. So, I guess my favorite Black Sabbath album would be Master of Reality. But for some reason, this is the album that I go to, and it just stays on the platter sometimes for weeks, and it would just keep playing. I'd maybe listen to this once a day for a couple of weeks and then put it away again. But yeah, Paranoid. I mean, everyone should know this album, really, whether you're into metal or not, and just a classic album. Next, also from 1970, Sweet Smoke, Just a Poke. Now, these guys are pretty much the definition of, I would say, hippie music. Look at that cover. But also very engaging, progressive, maybe psychedelic, you could call them. And it is really just two songs, Silly Sally on side A and Baby Night on side B. But it is fantastic stuff. If you don't know Sweet Smoke, check these guys out. Next up, one of my favorites from my high school days, Doors. I've spoken about this album before. I've spoken about the Doors before, I guess. I'd say one of my all-time favorite bands from the 60s. And this album came out when 71, I guess. And yeah, LA Woman. I guess my favorite album by the band would be Strange Days. Absolutely love that album, but this one I keep going back to and keep playing over and over. Next, another prog rock classic from the Canterbury scene in the UK, Caravan, in the land of grey and pink. This one also came out in 71. Look at that cover art. I mean, seriously. Well, actually, let's do the whole thing and hopefully see all of it. Absolutely spectacular cover art. The music itself is prog for the most part, but then you've also got, a song like, where is that? Golf Girl, the opening song on the album, which is, uh, it's proggy, but it's also really just infectious pop rock and a fantastic album. Next, one of my childhood favorites. I've got multiple editions of this. Thick as a Brick, Jethro Tull, and this one's a very beat up edition from sometime in the 80s, I guess. But yeah, Thick as a Brick, absolute stone cold classic. Then another childhood favorite, Alice Cooper, School's Out. Now, one of my earliest introductions to hard rock or even just plain rock was this album. I remember, I think maybe 8, 9 years old, sitting with my dad, listening to him spin his records. And Alice Cooper, this album particularly was a constant, right? This, some Hendrix, some Purple, but this one actually blew my mind, particularly the title song, when Alice sings, School who's been blown to pieces. That fucking blew my mind. Seriously, I think it was the first really rebellious thing I'd ever heard. And I was like, wow. School's out, Alice Cooper. Next, Genesis selling England by the pound. This was, when did this come out? 73. And yeah, just another fantastic album. I absolutely adore Genesis. Even their pop stuff from the 80s, I like all of it really. But this album is, I would say, probably is my favorite Genesis album as well. Maybe this Foxtrot would tie. But yeah, Dancing with the Moonlit Night, uh, Firth of Fifth, The Battle of Epping Forest, absolute classic. And then we've got from Japan, 1973, is it? Yeah, Far Out. And they are only full length Nihonjin. I don't know if this would be a full length. This is again just two songs, a song on each side, and it is fantastic psych rock. The band would later, of course, morph into the Far East Family Band and release a few more albums under that moniker. But this album, Nihonjin by Far Out, if you're into heavy psychedelic rock, this is an absolute must have. And this is another one of those albums that just stays on the platter for days on end. You could start listening to it on a Sunday, and I would still be listening to it the following Sunday. Fantastic stuff. Next, the first Shakti album. John McLaughlin, I guess he'd made a name for himself with the Mahavishnu Orchestra already. And I had no idea who he was when I picked this cassette up. It was mainly because I saw El Shankar and Zakir Hussein's name on the cassette and picked this up, and wow, I had no idea what I was in for. And I couldn't believe these sounds were coming out of a guitar. Absolutely fantastic fusion, I guess. But very, very indebted to South Indian classical traditions, Carnatic music particularly, and just lightning in a bottle. The band never really managed to capture this. Most of it was improvised live, and it is rather stunning, an absolutely stunning album. And I'd say one of my favorite albums from the 70s, really. This is the first Shakti album. And finally, Pink Floyd Animals. So, my favorite Pink Floyd would probably be Wish You Were Here, and maybe not Dark Side of the Moon, but Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I love that album. But for whatever reason, this is the album that I keep spinning over and over and over. And yeah, it is just a fantastic album. Pigs on the Wing, Dogs, Sheep, Pigs on the Wing, Part 2. I mean, this is just a brilliant album. And yeah, those were my 10 records of albums that I play the most. Short video, and let's see, as I was thinking about this, I thought it might be a good idea to break this up decade wise. So I've covered the 70s, and maybe I'll sit down and cover the following decades in future videos. And yeah, good to be back. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, drop a comment. Tell me what your most played albums are. Doesn't have to be your favorites, like I said, just the albums that you keep putting on. And have a good one. Cheers.